Good morning and welcome to our live coverage of the Transporter 15 mission. Falcon 9 is currently scheduled to lift off at 10:44 a.m. Pacific from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base, which is just north from us here in Hawthorne, California. My name is Tyler Lionquist, and I'm a Starlink business analyst here at SpaceX.
And I'm Soumya Srivastava, a certification engineer here based in Hawthorne. For those of you following along, we stood down from our previous launch attempt due to a ground systems issue that led to a reduced flow rate during propellant load. Since then, the team was able to identify the root cause and complete the necessary work to get us back into a nominal state for our launch attempt today. There are 140 payloads on this flight, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, and orbital transfer vehicles carrying 13 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. All spacecraft on board today will separate from the second stage across 110 deployment events, scheduled to start around T+54 minutes and conclude about 2 hours and 43 minutes after liftoff.
SpaceX has launched over 1,400 payloads to orbit for more than 130 customers across our rideshare program. This launch marks our 19th launch of our Transporter and Bandwagon missions. For more information on what's flying today, we have a full list of payloads available on spacex.com/launches.
Right now, the weather is currently green on the Central Coast, and the range is ready to support. If needed, there's a backup launch opportunity tomorrow at the same time. While the countdown continues, let's take a moment to learn more about the Taiwan Space Agency's Formosat-8, the payload at the top of today's stack. The Formosat-8 program will consist of 6 high-resolution optical remote sensing satellites with a raw resolution of 1 meter and 2 ultra-high-resolution satellites with a raw resolution of less than 1 meter. The satellites will be deployed in Sun-Synchronous orbit to form a constellation that's capable of providing global coverage of satellite images. Here's more from the Taiwan Space Agency.
Taiwan holds significant advantages in semiconductors and precision machinery. With these capabilities, we are prepared to play a major role in the global space supply chain.
Formosat-8 is Taiwan's first homemade satellite constellation, and we look forward to expanding our international partnership through this exciting project.
Formosat-8 is Taiwan's first domestically developed optical remote sensing satellite constellation. Up to 84% of its key components were developed domestically under TASA's lead. The constellation comprises 6 1-meter optical remote sensing satellites and 2 sub-meter higher resolution satellites. The first Formosat-8 satellite launches in 2025. Its optical payload functions as a large space-based camera with a focal length of 3,927 millimeters. Multispectral filters capture panchromatic and spectral images for use in homeland security, agriculture, and environmental monitoring. Time delay integration technology is used to accumulate multiple exposures in sync, significantly enhancing image quality and clarity. The system can identify objects larger than 0.7 meters from 561 kilometers after image processing. It also contributes to space scientific observation, enabling academia to validate space payloads. Once the constellation is fully deployed, it will achieve global coverage and will pass over Taiwan 3 times daily, delivering timely and reliable Earth observation data to support disaster management, national security, and global collaboration. Formosat-8 marks a key step in bringing Taiwan's space technology to the world and advancing our role in international space missions.
The Falcon 9 rocket supporting today's mission is a two-stage rocket designed for the reliable and safe transportation of satellites, cargo, and people. Starting from the very top of the rocket, we have the payload fairing. The fairing is a protective shell that houses all of the payloads, shielding them from aerodynamic heating until the vehicle is outside of Earth's atmosphere.
The shape of the fairing contributes to Falcon 9's overall efficiency, helping to reduce drag during flight. Once in space, the two fairing halves separate and fall back to Earth, where they will be recovered by our recovery vessel to be refurbished and reused on future flights. Both halves of this fairing are flight-proven, with one side flying for its 5th time and the other for its 4th.
And within that fairing is today's payload stack. Here's a photo from midway through the encapsulation operation, just before the fairing halves were closed in preparation for flight. And here is a live view inside the second stage as we await liftoff.
Right below the fairing is Falcon 9's second stage, which houses a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine. Below the second stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage, and inside of that is where the MVAC engine is located. The inner stage connects the two stages and houses a center pusher that allows the first and second stages to separate from one another during flight. And below that, we have the first stage, or the booster. The first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 Merlin M1D engines at the bottom, which generate more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust.
The first stage supporting today's mission will be making its 30th flight today, and this is the second time that we are flying a booster 30 times. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage will separate and make its way back to Earth. Today, the booster is headed for a Droneship landing on Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Pacific.
Many of the payloads on today's flight are manifested by Exolaunch, a long-standing SpaceX customer. In fact, Exolaunch has had payloads on every transporter mission since the beginning of the program.
Exolaunch has successfully deployed nearly 500 satellites with SpaceX since 2020, flying on Falcon 9 to Sun-Synchronous and mid-inclination orbits, and Falcon Heavy to geostationary orbit. This is Exolaunch's 41st mission in total and 15th transporter mission with SpaceX, and it's also their largest mission to date.
Exolaunch is set to deploy 58 payloads today, enabling launch access for more than 30 commercial, institutional, and government customers from 16 countries. Here's more from Exolaunch.
Exolaunch is the global leader in satellite launch mission management, manufacturer of industry-leading satellite separation systems, and a launch integrator on rideshare missions. The company has demonstrated unmatched flight heritage and consistent execution across 40 missions on global launch vehicles, deploying close to 600 customer satellites safely into orbit.
Exolaunch, headquartered in Germany, operates globally with offices in the US, France, and Japan. Exolaunch is a long-standing customer of SpaceX and the only launch integrator with payloads manifested on every transporter mission since the rideshare program began in 2020. Over 475 satellites have deployed with SpaceX since then.
Exolaunch enables access to space and provides end-to-end launch mission management, from launch planning, launch capacity procurement, comprehensive mission management, including customs clearance, and satellite transportation to the launch site, satellite integration with the launch vehicle, and a safe satellite deployment into your target orbit through our proprietary separation systems.
Transporter 15, our largest mission to date, features multiple satellite constellations and single satellite missions for our long-standing and new customers. As with previous missions, Exolaunch is utilizing its portfolio of flight-proven deployment systems on Transporter 15. Carbonic separation rings in multiple sizes for precise and shock-free microsatellite separation, Exapod Nova deployers for both standard and high-volume, high-mass CubeSats, Quadro Aero 4-point microsatellite separation systems for synchronized low tip-off deployments, and Exolaunch will also utilize its latest, much stiffer, flight-proven separation system, Carbonix Neo.
Earlier this year, Exolaunch announced new multi-year contracts with SpaceX to continue launching aboard SpaceX rideshare missions through 2028 and securing launch capacity for Exolaunch's customers for years ahead. We're deeply grateful to SpaceX for enabling easy, reliable, and regular access to space for the global smallsat community. And we thank all of our customers for their continued trust and partnership.
Go Transporter 15 and go Falcon 9.
At T-minus 5 minutes and 35 seconds, all systems continue to be a go for an on-time liftoff. Coming up shortly, the Transporter Erector, or the TE, will retract in order to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. You might hear it referred to as the strongback from the launch team, though the strongback is one of the components of the TE that is alongside Falcon 9. It's designed to transport, raise, and support Falcon 9 at the launch pad, and it's also equipped with umbilicals, or these flexible lines that are used to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from the ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 switches to internal power and clears the pad.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
That's a good indication that we are on track for an on-time liftoff as the Transporter Erector prepares to retract. We're just about 20 seconds away from starting to see those clamp arms opening around the second stage on our vehicle stack. Those clamps help stabilize the second stage during fueling and prevent movement in high winds. Once they're open, the rocket will be fully free at the top.
Strongback recheck.
You can see those arms coming open now. It's going to take about 15 seconds for them to fully open, but once they're out of the way, the strongback will recline away from the vehicle and give it room for liftoff. Now that those arms are fully open, the rocket is free at the top. The launch tower's strongback is now moving away from Falcon 9, allowing it to stand freely before liftoff. And there we can see that the strongback has fully reclined.
Now at T-minus 3 minutes and 23 seconds and counting down, all systems are currently go for an on-time liftoff. Rideshare missions like today's significantly increase access to space for small satellite operators around the world, and we're excited to be able to offer these launch opportunities for our customers.
In addition to helping drive down the cost of access to space by flying reusable vehicles, dedicated rideshare flights provide small satellite operators competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, and flexibility. Overall, SpaceX's rideshare program has enabled our customers...
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
I'll go.
There was a good call-out that liquid oxygen loading for the first stage has finished, finalizing propellant loading for the booster. Overall, SpaceX's rideshare program has enabled our customers to iterate on their technologies and grow at scale. There are all types of spacecraft on these missions, everything from payloads for the US government, to constellation deployments, to technology demonstrators, to re-entry vehicles. And we've also seen several countries launch their first spacecraft ever on board transporter missions, tons of student efforts, and even a father-daughter CubeSat project.
And we're excited to see how Starship, our next-generation launch vehicle currently in development, will take rideshare to the next level. For more information on SpaceX's rideshare program, visit spacex.com/rideshare.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Great call out there, indicating that liquid oxygen for the second stage is now fully loaded, completing prop load for the upper stage. Those white clouds venting from the rocket is not smoke.
Ground gas closeouts.
That is condensation. And we just heard that the call out for the gas closeout has started, and that refers to the venting and closing out of the gaseous systems, such as the topping off of the tanks and sealing vents to maintain pressure inside of the tanks. So we're now standing by for confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup, which will be coming up within the next 10 seconds at the T-minus 1 minute mark.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Now at this point, the autonomous flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and stages 1 and 2 are pressurizing for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that note from the launch director, all systems are go for launch of Transporter 15.
30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Transporter 15.
Vehicles pitching downrange. MOD chamber pressures are nominal.
At T plus 31 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We're currently throttling down to prepare for max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic stress on the vehicle.
Nominal.
Max Q is reached when the air density of the atmosphere decreases faster than the increasing speed of the rocket.
Mach 1. Max Q.
And there's the call out for max Q. Merlin engines are back at full power and we're out of the throttle bucket. From here on, even though velocity is rapidly increasing, the atmospheric density is decreasing, resulting in less loads on Falcon 9. So coming up next, we'll have several events happening in quick succession, starting with MECO, followed by stage separation, and second engine start, or SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, where the first stage separates from the second stage. Then the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as second engine start 1, or SES-1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and our payloads to orbit. After that, the fairing will jettison from the second stage, as it's no longer needed to protect the payloads once we're in space.
Nominal trajectory.
We should be hearing the first of these callouts in about 10 seconds from now.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
And there you heard and saw those 3 events that happened back to back, including main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1. Coming up next will be fairing separation in about 20 seconds from now. We should be hearing that call out for fairing separation in just a few moments from now.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there, we just heard confirmation of fairing separation, along with a view of those 2 halves separating from the vehicle on your screen. As a reminder, those fairings will make their way back to Earth for recovery. The next major milestone coming up is entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage, which is scheduled to occur around the T plus 6 minute mark. The entry burn is used to slow the first stage down as it heads back towards our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
We're currently in our first MVAC burn, and this burn should last for another few minutes. The next milestone will be the first stage entry burn, coming up in about 2 minutes from now. Today, Falcon 9 is performing 2 burns in order to land. The first burn, known as the entry burn, slows the vehicle down before hitting the denser parts of Earth's atmosphere. Without this burn, we'd only be using the atmospheric drag to slow down Falcon 9, which would add extra stress to the vehicle.
Following entry burn, the booster will initiate the landing burn, which should slow the vehicle down even more for a successful landing. When Falcon 9 fires up the center M1D engine for re-entry, the vehicle will be flying through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume, which deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle surface. You'll see these marks across the flight-proven Falcon 9 first stage fleet, and that soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each flight, the soot builds up a little bit more on the outside of the vehicle. Today's booster is a veteran and no stranger to rideshare missions, having flown 29 missions prior to today's flight, including Transporter 14, Bandwagon 2, Transporter 9, and Transporter 8. Falcon 9 is equipped with 4 hypersonic grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage that help steer the first stage as it returns to Earth, and we have a great view of 2 of them on our screen right now.
We are moments away from the beginning of the entry burn. You should see the graphics light up as the engines do on the bottom of your screen.
Stage 1, entry burn startup. Stage 1, FTS has safed.
And there's the call out for the entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. This burn is set to last about 30 seconds and again is slowing down the vehicle in preparation for its final burn and landing.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And that concludes our entry burn.
Both vehicles remain on a nominal trajectory.
As mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to recover this booster. Today, the booster is targeting a landing on our Droneship, Of Course I Still Love You. Today's landing burn attempt will be a 3-engine landing burn, where engines 1, 5, and 9 will relight to really quickly slow down the vehicle before touchdown.
You can follow along with the burn in the engine graphic at the bottom of your screen. As this burn happens, you'll notice a decrease in both speed and altitude. And during the landing burn, we're expecting the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine, which is known as Second Engine Cutoff 1 or SES or SECO 1. We have both events coming up in just a minute.
Stage 1 transonic. Stage 2 is in terminal guidance. Stage 2, Stage 1 landing burn.
And there you heard that call out for landing burn start on the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute before touching down.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
As you saw and probably heard, we had a successful first stage landing.
Nominal orbit insertion.
That was successful cutoff of our second stage engine, and we heard the call out for good orbit. Coming up next, we have the second burn of our MVAC engine on board the second stage, or SES-2, around the T plus 51 minute mark.
The first batch of deployments today will begin at about T plus 54 minutes. We'll be back at around T plus 50 minutes to bring you live coverage of SES-2. Until then, enjoy our space tracks and we'll see you soon.
look at a rocket from Mars and you just boggle the mind. And the technology caught up, didn't it?
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Transporter 15 mission. It's been a great launch and overall mission so far. We had an on-time liftoff at 10:44 a.m. Pacific, and we recovered the first stage on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, for its 30th launch and landing. Again, this is the second time that we've launched and landed a booster 30 times.
And we had a successful burn of the MVAC engine on our second stage. Following that, Stage 2 entered an approximately 40-minute coast phase. We're expecting the second ignition of our MVAC engine here shortly, followed by our first batch of payload deployments.
If you're just joining us, today's flight is part of SpaceX's rideshare program. Our rideshare missions launch multiple small satellites into orbit using a single Falcon 9 rocket. Transporter flights are intended to make access to space more affordable for small satellite operators around the world. To learn more about our rideshare program, visit spacex.com/rideshare or email the team at rideshare@spacex.com.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And we just had confirmation of successful second burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage and confirmation of good orbit. And with that burn complete, we are on track to start our first wave of payload deployments in just about 3 minutes from now.
There are 140 payloads on today's flight, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, and orbital transfer vehicles carrying 13 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. There will be a total of 110 separate deployment events today.
And for this first batch, we're expecting 108 deployments. These will individually separate from Falcon 9's second stage, one right after the other. And we should hear callouts as the payloads are being deployed.
We've got about 2 minutes before we start deployments. We are expecting to have live views for most of these. We're still over a minute away from the first of our deployments. The first deployment sequence will begin with 6 payloads manifested by Exolaunch. We've got great views of our payloads today. We're about 30 seconds away from this first deployment sequence.
Row 2, separation confirmed. Row 17, separation confirmed. IHI-Sat2, separation confirmed. Row 20, separation confirmed. Phi 1, separation confirmed. Black Kite 1, separation confirmed. Triad 2, separation confirmed. Lima 2, Lila, separation confirmed. HUNITY, SARI 1 and SARI 2, ANISC, separation confirmed. Lima 2, Dean and Maeve, separation confirmed. OroraTech GENA-OT-1, separation confirmed. Lima 2, Theodore, separation confirmed. Lilium 2, separation confirmed. Luna 1, separation confirmed. 6G Starlab, separation confirmed. Extension 1, separation confirmed. SpeQtre, separation confirmed. HUNITY-Sat1, separation confirmed. OTTER and HCT-Sat2, separation confirmed. Fledgling Veery and Spin 2, separation confirmed. Triad 1, separation confirmed. OroraTech GENA-OT-1, separation confirmed. T-MicroSat-1, separation confirmed. MICE-1, separation confirmed. Flock 4H10, separation confirmed. CTC-1A, separation confirmed. Flock 4H25, separation confirmed.
Lilium 3, separation confirmed. PHASMA-LAMARR, separation confirmed. PHASMA-DIRAC, separation confirmed. Flock 4H14, separation confirmed. Flock 4H13, separation confirmed. AE5RC, separation confirmed. Flock 4H5, separation confirmed. Wisdom A and B, separation confirmed. Lemur 2, Stas Gorbuk, separation confirmed. CTC-1B, separation confirmed. Flock 4H26, separation confirmed. Flock 4H28, separation confirmed. Flock 4H23, separation confirmed. CTC-1C, separation confirmed. PHASMA-M, separation confirmed. Flock 4H4, separation confirmed. IRIDE-MS1, Eaglet-2-1, separation confirmed. PHAST-S2, separation confirmed. IRIDE-MS1, Eaglet-2-5, separation confirmed. MAV, separation confirmed. Flock 4H27, separation confirmed. IRIDE-MS1, Eaglet-2-4, separation confirmed. IRIDE-MS1, Eaglet-2-3, separation confirmed. IRIDE-MS1, Eaglet-2-6, separation confirmed. AE5RA, separation confirmed. AE5RB, separation confirmed. IRIDE MS1, Eaglet 28, separation confirmed. Block 4H32, separation confirmed. IRIDE MS1, Eaglet 27, separation confirmed. Block 4H16, separation confirmed. IRIDE MS1, Eaglet 22, separation confirmed. Block 4H31, separation confirmed. Block 4H3, separation confirmed. U cubed A, separation confirmed. Block 4H35, separation confirmed. Block 4H33, separation confirmed. Block 4H34, separation confirmed. Block 4H2, separation confirmed. Block 4H36, separation confirmed. Block 4H30, separation confirmed. Block 4H15, separation confirmed. Block 4H29, separation confirmed. Block 4H18, separation confirmed. Block 4H19, separation confirmed. Block 4H20, separation confirmed.
So we've confirmed 72 of the first 72 deployments. We have an expected loss of signal, but there is a ground station approaching, and we'll have more confirmations in the next few minutes.
Block 4H17, 24, and 22, separation confirmed. Block 4H21 and 1, separation confirmed. Block 4H6, separation confirmed. Block 4H8, separation confirmed. Block 4H7, separation confirmed. Block 4H12, separation confirmed.
So far, we've had a successful deployment sequence. We've confirmed 81 out of 110 deployments. Up next, we have 27 remaining deployments before the final 2 after SES-3.
Block 4H9, separation confirmed. Block 4H11, separation confirmed. IHI-4, separation confirmed. IHI-3, separation confirmed.
We had an unexpected loss of signal during our current ground station pass. We're expecting return of signal in about 6 minutes from now. At that time, we'll get confirmation of our remaining deployments in this initial deployment sequence. If you're just joining us, we've had a successful mission so far. We had an on-time liftoff at 10:44 a.m. Pacific from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base. And we recovered the first stage on our Droneship, Of Course I Still Love You. Following that, Stage 2 entered a 40-minute coast phase, and we currently have 85 deployment confirmations. There are 23 remaining deployments in this initial sequence, with 2 more remaining after SES-3. And as a quick reminder, we've had an unexpected loss of signal during our current ground station pass, but we're expecting return of signal in a few minutes from now. At that time, we'll get confirmation of our remaining deployments from this initial deployment sequence.
USAT-52, separation confirmed. AC-1003, separation confirmed. IHI-1, separation confirmed. Hydro-GNSS-1, separation confirmed. PHASMA-S1, separation confirmed. NAILA, separation confirmed. YAM-9, separation confirmed. Umbra-11, separation confirmed. Pelican 6, separation confirmed. Pelican 5, separation confirmed. USAT-47, separation confirmed. AC-1001, separation confirmed. Mercury 1, Proteus Space, separation confirmed. FGN Tug S01, separation confirmed. IHI-5, separation confirmed. SCV Galactic Gorgas, separation confirmed. Hydro GNSS 2, separation confirmed. AC-1002, separation confirmed. USAT-51, separation confirmed. BARDA's W5, separation confirmed. IHI-2, separation confirmed. Impulse Space Mira 3, separation confirmed. SCV Stellar Stephanus, separation confirmed. All payload separations in the first deploy event have been confirmed.
And with that call out for deployment, that brings us to the close of our first deployment sequence. We have 2 more left to deploy, Formosat 8 and then R5S7 as our final payload for this mission. For now, we are going to coast until the 3rd MVAC relight, or SES-3, which should occur at about T plus 1 hour and 45 minutes. Until then, enjoy the space views and the space jams.
rockets from Mars, and you just boggle the mind. And the technology caught up to them.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the Transporter 15 mission. If you're just joining us, we're continuing to have a great mission tonight. Just to recap, we had an on-time liftoff at 10:44 a.m. Pacific, recovered our Falcon 9 booster for its 30th landing, and we've completed 2 separate second stage burns.
We also saw the first deployment sequence of 108 payloads, and we now have 2 more to go. Coming up shortly is the second relight of our second stage Merlin vacuum engine for a roughly 1 second burn.
Nominal transfer orbit insertion.
And that's confirmation of a good orbit following our third burn of the MVAC engine on the Falcon 9 second stage. And with that call out, we're now going to take one more break for a 4th second stage engine burn, followed by our second to last payload deployment, FORMO-SAT-8, at about T+2 hours and 19 minutes.
SES-4 is about 30 minutes from now and will occur about 4 minutes before the next deployment. Enjoy some more space jams, and we'll see you back here in a few.
everyone, and welcome back to our live coverage of the Transporter 15 mission. We're currently just about a minute away from the fourth burn of our Merlin vacuum engine on the Falcon 9 second stage, also known as SES-4. And once that short burn, lasting just about a second, completes, it'll then be followed by the next payload deployment, Formosat 8.
There are 140 payloads on this mission, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, and orbital transfer vehicles, carrying 13 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. We have already deployed the first batch of 108 and now have 2 left to go. There will be 1 deployment in this round, and our final deployment will come after a short break. For now, let's stand by for SES-4 and SECO-4 callouts happening.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there we heard confirmation of that fourth MVAC burn. The next payload deployment should begin in just about 4 minutes. In case you're just tuning in, we had an on-time liftoff at 10:44 a.m. Pacific and recovered our Falcon 9 booster for its 30th landing.
After the first batch of payload deployments, the second stage had its 3rd successful ignition, and you just saw that 4th MVAC ignition and cutoff. We're now standing by for the next payload deployment, Formosat 8.
And we are expecting to have live views for this next deployment.
Formosat 8A, deploy confirmed.
Thanks for flying SpaceX FormaSat-8. We wish you well on your journey. We'll come back just before the 5th burn of the MVAC engine, which is about 20 minutes from now, and that will occur about 4 minutes before our final deployment of the mission. We'll see you back here after a short break.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our live coverage of the Transporter 15 mission. We're currently about a minute away from the fifth burn of our Merlin vacuum engine on the Falcon 9 second stage, also known as SES-5. And once that burn completes, it'll then be followed by our final payload deployment for the mission, NASA's R5S7. The R5S7 CubeSat, which stands for Realizing Rapid, Reduced Cost, High-Risk Research Project Spacecraft 7, is about the size of a shoebox and was developed by NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, and it will explore ways to send multiple technology prototypes into low Earth orbit rapidly and at a low cost.
There are 140 payloads on today's mission, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, and orbital transfer vehicles, carrying 13 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. We've already deployed 109, so we're almost done. For now, let's stand by for the SES-5 and SECO-5 callouts happening in just about 30 seconds from now.
Nominal deorbit.
And there we heard confirmation of that fifth MVAC burn. The payload deployment sequence should begin in just about 4 minutes. Now, in case you're just joining us, you are super late. We had an on-time liftoff at 10:44 a.m. Pacific and recovered our Falcon 9 booster for its 30th landing.
After the first batch of 108 payload deployments, the second stage had its third and fourth successful ignitions. We've deployed FormaSat-8 just before the break, and you just saw that fifth MVAC ignition and cutoff. We're now standing by for the deployment of R5S7.
As we mentioned earlier, a full list of the payloads on today's mission is available on spacex.com/launches. And in case you're not familiar, our transporter missions are dedicated rideshare flights to Sun-Synchronous orbit.
Falcon 9 is also launching the Bandwagon missions, which are a separate line of rideshare missions that deliver spacecraft to mid-inclination orbit rather than to transporters' Sun-Synchronous orbit. To learn more about our rideshare program, visit spacex.com/rideshare or email the team at rideshare@spacex.com.
And we are expecting to have live views for our final deployment.
R5S7, separation confirmed.
And with that confirmation, we've successfully deployed all Transporter 15 payloads.
All payloads successfully separated from Transporter 15.
It has been a long mission, but so worth it to see all of those CubeSats, microsats, and orbital transfer vehicles now in space. We would like to thank all of our rideshare customers for entrusting us with their spacecraft today.
We also want to say thank you to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for their support, and to you, our viewers. This launch marked our 19th rideshare program launch, including both transporter and bandwagon missions.
To date, SpaceX has launched more than 1,400 payloads to orbit for more than 130 customers across our entire rideshare program. A full listing of today's payloads can be found at spacex.com/launches.
And for more launch coverage, be sure to check that same site for the most up-to-date information, or follow us at SpaceX on X. And with that, we'll be bringing our webcast to a close. Thank you again for joining us.